friends, welcome back to Ashar Books. Today I'm here to talk all about tropes. So tropes are those common themes or ideas that we see over and over again appear in our books and even in our movies and TV shows and stuff like that too. So I feel like everyone really has their favorites and their least favorites when it comes to tropes, and it's a really personal thing. I feel like this is how you get into an argument with someone, is talking to them about their favorite tropes, because I feel like people have deep emotional connections to either they love them or they hate them. So I decided to tell you guys some of my favorites and maybe ask what some of your favorites are in the comments. So I'm going to give you guys my top 3 favorite tropes and maybe my least favorite tropes. Also, just a disclaimer, just because I either love a trope that you guys hate or if I hate a trope that you guys love, it's not a big deal. I think that's what's amazing about books, is that everyone can have a different opinion and 2 people can read the same book and feel completely different about it, and I think that's really cool. So let me know down below in the comments what you guys think about these tropes. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Let me know what you think. And also, if you have any recommendations about books that have my favorite tropes in them, definitely let me know, because I'm always on the lookout for more. Let's get started. So I figured we'd start with my least favorite tropes. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this one out there. One of my least favorite tropes personally is the love triangle. I'm not a fan. I mean, I know some people like them. I can understand why they are good plot devices in a way, because it does give that conflict, especially in teenagers, that I think can be there. But personally, I have just never bought it. Aside from maybe 1 or 2 circumstances that I can think of, I just don't think they're done well. Typically, I'm that person that picks my favorite and picks the person that she's gonna be with in the beginning of the book, and no matter what happens, I'm still gonna want her to be with that person. And it's very rare for an author to change my mind. I just don't think it's believable that someone can necessarily have the same amount and the same kind of emotions about 2 people at the same time. Now, I do think you can be in love with 2 people at the same time, but I don't know if you're in love with them, you know, romantically in love with them. And I think that's maybe where some of the love triangle comes from. Also, I think a love triangle does work better in the books that I've actually enjoyed it in, typically are a series. So you can believe that a person might change their mind about someone when they have changed a lot. So when the heroine, it's usually always a girl, changes dramatically from one book to like the 4th book, I think it's a lot more believable to have her change her mind or fall out of love with someone or fall into love with someone than if it's 1 book. If it's 1 book, I don't know about you, but I just cannot get on board with that someone completely changed that much in 1 book. So there's that. So my second least favorite trope is dead parents. Dead parents everywhere. I mean, there are no living parents in all of these books. Now this starts with Disney. I mean, we have talked about this amongst my friends group for a long time, that Disney kills off all of the parents. So maybe that's where it came from in especially YA books, but really in fiction in general. I love a good family dynamic. I love it when there's parents. I love it when there's siblings. I just think it makes for a really fun book. I'm not saying they need to be like the main characters, but to have a side character, even if it is that they're arguing or that they don't get along or that they have a rift in the family, I think that is much more believable and also adds a plot device rather than just taking the parents away in general. I mean, I know that some people probably have lost both of their parents when they're very young, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but to have this many people without any parents at all, I feel like a lot of times it's just the easy way out, because that way you can have your young heroes and heroines kind of running around saving the world without having to worry about the parents. And it just seems kind of like an easy road out. I would just love to see more parents and more just like family dynamics. My third least favorite trope is the billionaire trope. This one's definitely more common in romances, and if you guys read any romances at all, all these men have all this money, and I'm not saying that we want someone who's like very poor and struggling, because no one wants to read about that, okay? We read to escape. We want to go to a happy, you know, wealthy place. But I feel like you can make a hero or a heroine like successful in a business without making them a billionaire. You know, how many billionaires do you meet on the street every day? I don't meet very many, I don't think. So I just feel like that is another one that just kind of takes you away from the story sometimes and makes it less believable for me, because I understand they need to have certain financial means to kind of be able to do the things that they need to in the story to move the story along. You know, if they need to buy a house or they need to go on a trip, they need to be able to have the money to do that. But I mean, I think you can still buy a house and go on a trip without being a billionaire, you know? Also, if they're a billionaire, wouldn't they be like really, really work obsessed and in their job all the time? Not like gallivanting around with the heroin. I'm just saying. That one, again, is just not believable for me. On to my favorite tropes. So again, some of these are very corny. I'm aware of that, but I still love them and I will read them till the cows come home. So my first favorite trope is the unlikely hero trope. This is very Harry Potter-esque. The person who starts off very normal, very humble, and suddenly have all this power or this responsibility thrust upon them. I know it's been a little bit overdone recently, but it just makes for such a great story and it's so compelling. I'm that person who always wants to root for the underdog. Like, I always want to pick the football team that's lower ranked and then root for them. So I don't know, I just think an unlikely hero to me is much more exciting. It's much more, moves the plot along and you like them more than someone who maybe has always been there and doesn't have to try as hard. So yeah, I just love that. I mean, it's in fantasy novels, it's in regular novels too, whereas it's someone who maybe has like family responsibility thrust upon them and they become a hero for, you know, taking over their siblings or something like that. I just love that trope. I think it can be done so well and it really just makes you feel like you can achieve too. Second favorite trope is forbidden love. I'm a sucker for forbidden love. You guys know I love romances. I do, and one of my favorites is any kind of forbidden love. I mean, if it's like in a fantasy, if they're from different warring worlds, that's great. If they're like different races, like one's a vampire and one's a witch or one's a werewolf, I love that. Or even in contemporary, if they're, you know, it's the brother's best friend, or it's the person at work that you're not necessarily supposed to be dating, or your best friend. I'm just a sucker for the forbidden romance. It's my favorite, it always has been, it probably always will be. If you guys have any forbidden romance recommendations, definitely let me know down below, because I feel like I've read most of them at this point, and I'm always looking for more. But yeah, I just love forbidden romance. I think it can be just so compelling to read for me. I don't really exactly know why, because I feel like in real life I probably wouldn't go into a forbidden romance, but maybe that's like why I like to read about it, because it's kind of like living out that fantasy in a safer place. But love a good forbidden romance. And my last favorite trope is the lost royal trope. This is one I kind of don't know if it's an actual trope, but for me it is. And what I mean by that is that person in the story that, if it's like a fantasy novel, it's like the royal who is hidden. So like the princess was hidden as a child and then they find out they're a princess like 20 years later. Or, you know, the person in a contemporary is, you know, kind of an average, you know, person, and they suddenly find out they're an heir to this huge fortune or empire. Again, I know this can be corny and I know it can be kind of unbelievable if it's not done right, but I personally just love it. I think it's the idea of like living in their world, because in some world, maybe I'm a hidden princess, you know what I mean? I think it's that, living vicariously through someone else. I love it when, particularly in like a fantasy novel, when the prince or princess or something like that is hidden and then they find out later in life that they're you know, royalty or someone important or have some kind of power, that kind of thing. I just love it. So good. Okay guys, those are all of my favorite tropes. Let me know what your favorite tropes are. Agree or disagree with me in the comments. I would love to know. If you're new, please like or subscribe if you would like to, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.